Schus for all of them. And all those who are still being held by those Hamas Yamach Shemam, the Rebbeinu Shem should help, they should all get out. Bekarev Mamish. The Schus von Rabbi Shimshon Chaim and Rabbi Nachman Mechul. The Torah that we learn and all that we do, Be'ezus Hashem, we should be zoichet. They should be zoicha. Ma'afelo la'oira meshibud le'geula hashta ba'agala b'zman kariv and oimar amen. Okay, Ma'ariv Rabbi Sai, we are now in Parshas Boy, because we're going to learn HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. This week is Parshas HaChodesh. So if you go to page Tav Kuf Nun Ches, page Tav Kuf Nun Ches, want to once again welcome everybody on Torah Anytime. Thank you, Torah Anytime, and thank you, Chaim, for doing such an amazing job. Chaim is also a photographer, and you can, if you need a good photographer, 914-8, a great one, 584-7319, 584-7319, 914. Listen, he's here every single week, and he does this Torah Anytime, and we have a Karasat Toiv. Okay, Pasuk HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. We'll be taking out once again another Sefer Torah. We take out one Sefer Torah to read Parshas Pekudei, finishing off Sefer Shemais. We take out a second Sefer Torah and read HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. Zog the heilige Zera Shimshon. Yesh loseis tam l'shevach l'mahutzrich loimer liyisrael Parshas Kiddush HaChodesh kodim sheyatzu miMitzrayim. You know, Parshas Kiddush HaChodesh within Yena Parsha talks about all of the halachas of Korban Pesach. In Parshas HaChodesh, you'll see all the rules and regulations of Korban Pesach. Very understanding why that is told to Klal Yisrael, because they would be making the Korban Pesach within 2 weeks. Yafeh. But why do they have to know HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem? Why is that necessary? And that's Shehi Mitzvah Rishona Shenitztava Yisrael. It's the first mitzvah that Klal Yisrael was told. Vus Epis. Why is this so important? Frekt the Zera Shimshon. One kasha. Also, let's be medaktek. HaChodesh Hazeh. This one, Rashi says, Malamed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed him the Levana, the new Chiddush HaChodesh. Aber, chutz from that, in Pshat, what is the Hazeh? And what is Lochem? HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. Was will man da? Milvan Mashtadoshu Chazah B'Rosh Hashanah, Kazeh Re'eh V'Kadesh, that like I just said, he showed him which one it was. Aber Medaf Epis Atam, a reason to understand. Yesh Loimar. Says the Heilige Zera Shimshon. We're going to start Zera Shimshon with a little introduction. We generally learn that the purpose of the Makkos were for what reason? To punish the Egyptians. They vayimoru es chayeyem ba'avoda kasha.
And to teach there's only one Hashem, the one God.
Oh, Baal Chaim Zukstach. On the one hand, the Makkos, right, were there because Vayimor es chayeyem ba'avoda kasha, made their lives bitter, correct? But that wasn't the only reason. That wasn't the only reason. Chaim says over here to teach Klal Yisrael that there is only one Eibishter. Meaning, they were living for years in a society believing that there are gods of fire, gods of water, gods of animals, gods of this. Fashidene mine avodah zara, which, as we've already mentioned a number of times, the Rambam writes that Klal Yisrael was so far tumult and so full of Egyptian culture that they already themselves almost forgot what Avram Avinu had taught them. The Rambam in Hilchas Avodah Zarah, Kemat Kot, it's almost that it was lost. As ha'emunah shehishtil Avram Avinu. What Avram Avinu had taught the world, that there's one God and one and only, that was kemat oizgemekt. It was kemat lost. So Klal Yisrael needed mitzad atzmam, needed an education to understand who the Eibishter was. In our Sefer from Maharal on Haggadah Shel Pesach, here it is, gentlemen. On this, and ladies, on this, in page 129, it speaks about the education of the plagues. That the plagues were meant to educate Bnei Yisrael. It was as to just punish the Egyptians and give them one major makeh. Just take them out, one get the clap until they take them out, would not be beneficial for Klal Yisrael. It would mean they would be leaving prematurely. They needed to know who the Eibishter was. This was as important for Bnei Yisrael as it was for the Mitzrayim, so that they should know wer das is, who is the Eibishter. So this is your little introduction to Zera Shimshon, to this piece. The Egyptians were punished. The Mishnah in Idias says it was 12 months. Every Makkah took 30 days. It was 3 weeks of warning and then an entire week of Makkah. So the Makkah, the duration of a Makkah, Dam, Tzvardeya, Kinim, etc., was a week of Gehenna for the Egyptians, with a 3-week warning prior to the Makkah. The Al-Posing, he want that. Why was there a warning? Because
why so long?
First of all, the warning, as was Flegsgid, he's going to discuss. The purpose of a warning, my River Aboisai, is also to be ma'ames Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe Rabbeinu says, this is what's going to happen, kacha v'kacha v'kacha, and this is what's going to happen, and then exactly what he says happens, that in itself gives credibility to Moshe Rabbeinu. It's ma'amis. When Chazal talk about, the Rambam writes, how would a Navi prove that he was indeed a emistic, a person speaking the name of Hashem? He would have to give a prediction bepirtei pratim, down to the exact detail. And if it didn't happen exactly the way he said it, then then he was it wasn't just a question, I apologize, who's going to win or what's the point spread going to be. That wasn't good enough. You had to know how many first downs, what had happened in it, every single prat. If he was off by one thing, he's a Novi Sheker. It's Nishke Novi Emes. So Moshe Rabbeinu giving a prediction, Moshe Rabbeinu giving a prediction for 3 weeks and telling them exactly what's going to happen. And then it happens was a part of the education that Klal Yisrael v'gam becha yaminu la'olam. Moshe Rabbeinu became in the eyes of Klal Yisrael and of the Egyptians a chashuv, a person who really spoke the words of Hashem. Therefore they could trust him afterwards when he said to them, keep Shabbos, don't eat chazer, do this. I'm not telling you anything. Where have I been for the last year? It's all been the Eibishter. V'ayin sham ha'posek v'yamala shvuas yom shivas yomim v'achar kois Hashem es ha'yor v'lefi zeh lo hoya mishpat ha'mitzriyim. So frek the Zera Shimshon, well, if every makkah took a month, and there's 10 makkahs, how much time should that be? 10 months. What's with the 12 months? What's the pshat? Frek the Zera Shimshon, what's with the year? How could the Gemara say, how could the Mishnah say that it was Yud Beis Chodesh? On this it says the Rosh Hashanah, the Marsha addresses this question. The Tiritz, the Ikala Meimer, Shahoyu, Yomim, Mufsakim, Benem, Beli, Makas, Vasra, Klal. Indeed, the Eibishter started, as we'll soon see from Rabbeinu Bechai, started and appeared to Moshe Rabbeinu in the Sneh on Tes Vav Nisan, exactly a year before the Yitzias Mitzrayim. And when he appeared to him in the Sneh, he said, that's it, Shamati es nakas b'nei Yisrael, I've heard and I've seen and I'm ready to do, and he already starts sending him. So the Mishpat Mitzrayim, from the time Moshe Rabbeinu is engaged and sent, or beginning to be sent as a Shliach, Yud Beis Chodesh, Tainu Metchilas Makosim V'Asrosim, from the beginning of the Makas and the Asros, even though, and there was a lapse in time. Now, the Gam Zekosha. But first, before I explain the Marsha, says the Zera Shimshon, Lama Hoya Inyan Kach. Why, even if you're going to tell me Kach Hazeh, I want to ask a different question. So you're telling me that it was a year. And how did it work out with the Makas? The Eibusher didn't punish him at all times. But why did he want a year? Why is this year so important? Why did the Eibishter dafka lamazeh? Why were the Why did the Eibishter set it up that way? Why didn't he just give them the makas one by one by one by one? It'll take 10 months and you'll be finished in 10 months. For the Eibishter wanted to spread it out over 12 months. V'yesh loymar. It says this, can I get a sitter over here, maybe? I need Nusach Svard, not Ashkenaz. Ashkenaz is wonderful, but it's not going to do us a justice for what we need. If you open up a Nusach art scroll, Nusach Svard sitter, you'll see at the bottom of, I've mentioned this in the past, right? What we're doing? Yeah. Right? You'll see over here, Rabbi Isai, you'll see that there are 12 different ways to write the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. You'll see 12 different ways. Here you go, Jonathan. 12, and there's exactly 12 ways to write them. Yud Kei Vav Kei, of course, is the straight, regular way. That's the midah of Rachamim. Backwards, when it's Hey Vav, Hey Yud, is the name of Hashem, B'midas Hadin. And different permutations, Hey, Hey, Vav, Yud, Yud. There's exactly 12 ways to do it. In that chart, he's megala that each month has its own shame of how that month represents the name of Hashem written specifically in that order.
With its mazel?
Every mazel, every koyach that comes out of that siruf shem Hashem, that siruf is the koyach of that chodesh, and every chodesh has its own mazel. What's that?
The answer is
what you do is when you say, so hand that over again, please, for a moment. When you say Baruch Ato Hashem by Mekadesh Yisov Rosh Chadoshim, depending what month it is, a person has the intent, the kavana of that name that's at the bottom over there. So if it's Nisan, it's the one in order, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and every single month has its other. Ear is Yud, Hey, Hey, Vav, etc., etc. Says the Zera Shimshon. Now take a look. Sharei Shem Havaya Baruch Hu Mashmoy, the Mashmoy Susha Mahave Kol Havayis. He is, we know what the word Yud Kei Vav Kei stands for? Hoya, Hoive, Veyiya, in one word. Why is that important? Why is that important? The Teretz is Poshet. Yud Kei Vav Kei. Hoya, he was, he is, and will be. That's basically what time is. past, present, and future. All of us who are creations have a past, a present, and a future. We're developing. The Eibishter is kol yochel. That means the Eibishter can't have a past, a present, and a future, because that would mean that the Eibishter has to change. Let me explain. I want to be very clear. This is going to be in the new Sefer, Be'ez Hashem, that's coming out for Sukkot. The Zman, time, is a product of imperfection. Because something is not perfect, it needs, therefore, it wants to be mashlim, or to perfect itself. So, if a person, for example, needs to eat, so there's the time before he ate, and then the time that he ate, because something's going to change. If a person needs to learn or needs to see someone, so then there's the zman before that happened and when it happens. What would you say if you were the type of creature that didn't need to eat, to sleep, to drink? There was no knowledge outside of yourself that you needed to get. You knew everything. There was nobody you needed to see. You saw everybody. There's no place you needed to go. You've seen it all. There's nothing bekitzer that you need to do. How would you perceive time? What would time mean for you?
Nothing.
Nothing. Why? Because I'm not going anywhere, correct? Because there's something you need to do. Because there's something that needs to happen. So memela, a person, that's the word zman, which means mizumin, which is ready. Lahazmin means to prepare. When you have to do something, so then you're shaykh to zman. When you don't have to do anything, then you're not under zman whatsoever. The Eibishter, hoya, hoive, yiyeh is one word. He is, was, and will be at one time, which represents that the Eibishter Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is not Tachas Azman. On the contrary, anything that's within Zman is totally in him, because for the Eibishter it is, was, and will be all at one. Hoya, hoive, v'yiyeh, in one word. In one word. That's what the Eibishter is. Now, the Kemoi, Shehu Bora Ha'olam Yesh Ma'ayin V'noisen Loi Havaya. He created the world and gave it a metzias. Ubezeh Hoya Parei Harosha Koifer. Parei would say, who's Hashem? Ma Shemoi. Who is this Eibishter? V'yasover Shakol Bo Mahamazul Mechatumem V'chiyotza. Parei was under the impression it's all from the mazolos. It's all different mazel. The Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu, therefore the Eibishter had a point to prove for Paroi and for the Yidden, that what? Every month, every mazel, every chodesh, I am in charge. So there's a cheshbon that the Eibishter wants 12 months. So you shouldn't even think for a second that you can wiggle out that 1 month is ki'ilu on my side.
Why did you give 12 makas? You could have given 12 and you didn't have to spread it out.
Why did he give 12? Why did he give 10 makas, Freik Meir? Who knows the answer? Why 10? Where does the number 10 come from? But Asara Mamoris. It's in here, right? The Asara Mamoris is the 10 utterances which the world was created. Do you know what happened to those Asar Mamores? You think that the world started through somebody else? I'm going to take the Mamores and I'm going to make them Makos. The Maimer that said Bereshis, which says the Rashis of the world will create a Makkah of Bechoros and kill your Bechor, your Rashis. The Maimer that said Yehi Or, I'm shutting the lights off. Yehi Choshech. V'cheheina, every single one of the ma'amoros, the 10 utterances, ba'asora ma'amoros nivra ha'olam, says the Maharal, but those as nicht andere ma'amoros. Ma'amoros zen geworden makos. Those ma'amoros then became makos to prove mi bara ela. And you know what else happened then? And afterwards, they became aseres hadibris. Says the Sfas Emes, if you want to know how you take 10 ma'amoros and make them into aseres hadibris, they go through 10 makos. The makos are mahapach the ma'amoros into dibros. Means the 3 groups of 10 parallel each other. And it's not rocket science to go through which one, the Maral and others. In our Sefer, we go through how the Asara Mamoros connect to the Aseres, to the Aseres Hamakos. Which Makkah was against which Maimer of Bria. So why is it 10 Makkahs? It's Pashut. Because the Eibishter, you said to me, Parai, you don't know who created the world. The act of creation will come to Mitzrayim as a Makkah. The Maimer of Bria will now be a Makkah. Veshain. You'll know very well who created those animals. You think they happen by themselves? Watch, they listen to me. They go into your houses, they go into and they walk by the Jewish people, and the Jewish people pet the tiger. Nice kitty. Right? The Jewish person is playing with the cat, and the andere he eats up. What's that? And he eats up the Egyptian. Who created that? That's the Maimer of Teitzei Ha'aretz, right? Chayos Lemina, right? On day number 6, let the earth bring out the Chayos. Yene Maimer, which said, let them bring out the Chayos. I'll show you who's boss. You think they just came azoi by themselves? Says the Zera Shimshon, the Eibishter Gewollt, the Eibishter wanted that since Parei was a big believer in Chartumim and Mazolos, that over 12 months, every single Mazel should have either a warning, either a Makkah, pressure on the Egyptians the entire 12 months, spanning. Now, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud Kei Vav Kei is Gematria, 26 times 12. Times 12 is 300. 10 times 26 is 260, right?
312.
Okay, we'll just get out the calculator.
Shine.
We all want the yeshiva to be in the calculator.
312. Chodesh is 312. Chodesh is 312. Chodesh, Ches and Dalid is how much? 12. Shin is how much? 300. 312 is 312. Chodesh means the Eibishter showing you that all the Havayas of all the 12 months, HaChodesh, this Kayach of Chodesh, which is to create the world, all Yud Kei Vav Kei, when Hagan Seyar, HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. That's the message I'm telling you. It belongs to you. V'lechein hoya mishpat Yud Beis Chadashim keneged Yud Beis Mazolos. Those are keneged the Yud Beis Mazolos, keneged Hashibat Sheshibat Yud Beis Shvatim, keneged every single month and every single part of that year was keneged another shavit that you shemoishlim lekaychavim mazolos. The Shvatim themselves are moishled, are compared to the mazolos. We keneged Yud Beis Gvulei Alachsan. We talked about that in the past as well a few times. Sheitzav HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Yaseh Olam. Ve'heim Yud Beis Sirufei Havaya Baruch Hu. Those are the 12 different names. Shebekol Chodesh veChodesh Shoylet Siruf Echad Ma'Hashem. Every month there is a koyach of the Eibishter that gives the koyach to that month with the tzirufei shemes of Yena Shem. If you ever open up a sefer from the Bnei Yisachar, the Bnei Yisachar explains how every single one of the months are keneged one of the Shvatim. 12 Shvatim, 12 months, 12 different ways of writing the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, each one parallel to each other. V'lekach loika v'haya mishpat b'chol tzirufei oisius shel Hashem. The ganze tzirufei oisius of the Rebbeinu Shem, all 12, that's why it had to happen. I once said over from the Rebbe, he said over in Ari HaKadosh, it's also written over here in the end of the Sefer, it's on page 254, number 26, in your end notes.
Just buy the Sefer.
It said, you have it, the hostess. I'm telling you, now that you have it, sometimes you don't know where to look.
Right.
The name Yud Kei Vav Kei is the Shirish of the Bria. It's the Shirish of the Bria. The word Yud Kei Vav Kei is all the possibilities that anything that exists in the world is because of that name. If you take the name and you take every prat of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei and you times it to the maximum, which means Yud times Yud, Hey times Hey, Vav times Vav, Hey times Hey. 25 and 25 is 50. Vav times Vav is 36, right, is 86. Yud times Yud is 100. 186 is Gematria Mokoim. The Mokoim of the Welt. The Rebbeinu Shalom is Baruch HaMokoim. Nachamo. Rafa, you got it? Yud times Yud, Hey times Hey, Vav times Vav, Hey times Hey is Gematria. Yeah, B'ribiyoi, right? It's Gematria Mokoim. You know why? That name of the Eibishter is the Mokoim of the Welt. Als existiert, everything exists by the Rebbeinu in Yenen Nomen. Als is Dorten. So, when Paroi is saying, "Wer der Eibishter," and these Yidden, unfortunately, have been influenced by him, once and for all, we need an education. And the Eibishter takes a little bit of time. It doesn't happen from one day to the next. So Memela, the Eibishter couldn't take Klal Yisrael out in just one makkah. He couldn't just give a clap, gegangen, because we don't know who we're following. How do I know that there aren't other koiches? Therefore, the Eibishter took the opportunity to educate us that we should know that every power in the world comes from him. Yeda chodesh, yeda mazel, yeda koyach in the bria. So by the time Klal Yisrael leaves Mitzrayim, they know very clear, Leich deich acharai bamidbar be'eretz lo yizarua. I don't need to have food. What are you going to eat? The Eibishter will provide. What do you mean the Eibishter is going to provide? Ask a younger man who gets married. Was wird sein? The Eibishter will provide. You know what the old joke, the Shreya says, I never know I was called God. Aber a younger man gleibt us. The Eibishter will provide. How? Es wird sein. How do you know that? 40 years the Jews were in the desert. 40 years, no savings accounts. No bank accounts, no saved up food. Jeden Tag, you had enough food for today. My machar Kadosh Baruch will bring man from heaven. It was so ingrained within them. How'd they get to such a level? How'd they know that? You know how they knew that? The 10 makkahs over 12 months. It was an education for class, and that's our job in Leila Seder. Leila Seder, there's a good Yiddish word, anzupflanzen. You know what that means? Anzupflanzen.
It's
a real word.
Good, I want to know what it means.
Real word?
You have to.
Yeah, like they heard.
It means to implant. It's implanting. Is that a good word? Is right? Richtig. It's to implant within ourselves and within our kinderlach and the next generation. Anzupflanzen. To implant within the next generation as the Eibishter is the one who takes care of us. These are one of the foundations of the Emunah of Klal Yisrael. So you need to know that. And Klal Yisrael needed to know that. That's the Shtei Mesrei Chodoshim, Zok the Zera Shimshon. That's the 12 months that Klal Yisrael needs an education. Every shame of Havaya, every kind of power that came from the Eibishter to the Bria manifests itself through a different Chodesh. Paroi thought that this mazel, yena mazel, it's stagninas, koichavim, this, ale cheshboinus. The Rebbeinu Shalom was out to prove to him that all of those cheshboinus, I'm going to reveal the source of all those cheshboinus. And that's why by Leil HaSeder, ani yotzal Mitzrayim. It's me. Lo yayidei malach, v'lo yayidei shliach, v'lo yayidei soraf. Ani the Eibishter b'chvoide b'atzmai takes Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. And this Mara Rabbis, like we said, is the Avodah B'chol Dor V'Dor. Chayiv Odom Liris Es Atzmai Kilu Yotzem Mitzrayim. It's our responsibility to give it over to our kinderlach, to give them lahashtil, to implant within them that's anzupflanzen, the Weishain, to in every single person and in ourselves to be mechazik in our emunah and the Eibishter. That's the whole yesod of Leil HaSeder. That's the whole yesod of the Seder. To imbue within ourselves and our. There's even an introduction of what the Seder is for. But als mizol wissen what our job and our goal is. Because as you go through life, then you always question, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu. Is the Eibishter here? Is he amongst us? Yes or no? Klal Yisrael is constantly asking, how come this didn't happen? How come the shidduch didn't happen? How come that didn't happen? V'chulei, v'chulei. The Berger has this cheshbon. The Berger knows why, and it's koman the ovid latav ovid. It's all for the good. So metakal lezoiches and be'ezus Hashem. The message hachodesh hazeh. This zeh is gematria 12. Says the Zera Shimshon. Zeh. This chodesh has the zeh. All 12 names of the Eibishter. All the Zeh. And that's Lochem. That's a message for you. Let's finish off the last words. Kishiyira Odom, it's on page Tovkov Samach, the last paragraph in this piece. Kishiyira Odom Chidush HaLavana. You see the Lavana. Umevarach aleh hine moira chidush ha'olam shu ikar emuna. You're saying, you see what the moon is? The moon was there, it disappeared, and now there's a new moon. Anaya his chadshus. Moira chidush ha'olam shu ikar emuna. Umayda al elakusai shal yoytze bereishis shechidesh ha'olam. The chodesh is all of the 12 names of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Keshem shemachadash alavan b'chol chodesh v'chodesh, like he does every month, so too the Eibishter is the koyach of all the chiddush of the world. So mataka zoiches ein bezus Hashem Yisbarach to be makabel the koyches, and we should taka see chiddush ha'olam b'karev mamish.